Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dungeon of Deadly Delights. This is episode 41. I'm, of course, one of your hosts, Rob DiLauro. And with us, as always, is Miss Holly Interlandi. Holly, what is going on?
Cheers.
Quite a bit going on, actually. We don't want to make this a political show. We were actually planning to do, evil politicians or something like that, when it came to, our ideas of what we wanted to do for this particular episode. Obviously, we didn't go that way, but I think our topic kind of pertains to the man that's in the office right now. I think it's pretty.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you want to go there, sure, yeah, absolutely.
But congratulations, President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris.
Seriously.
Yeah, it was a joyous occasion, of course. As I had mentioned before, pretty much anybody else, which is weird. It was basically like we were celebrating on the face of Endor after.
Oh, it was totally a yub nub moment. Yub nub. That's exactly what I thought of.
Nub nub. Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty weird.
And I was pessimistic. Like at the outset, I was like, we're gonna reelect Trump, aren't we? We're gonna fucking do it.
Yeah.
I just know it, but.
Yeah, the scary thing is, it was close, and regardless of Biden breaking all these records and stuff, there's one thing that we do have to take that into account, that Trump is the second world-breaking president when it comes to votes, and that says something. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of it has to do with things that you and I are against, like this PC culture, this woke bullshit. You know what I mean? Like
getting outraged at everything. Yeah.
Yeah, the outrage culture. I mean, just recently, like we were, the Mandalorian just dropped chapter 11, and it was a huge fucking reveal. If you're, like a huge fan of Clone Wars and Rebels, and Katie Sackhoff showed up as the live action Bo-Katan, which was like huge.
Very nice, very nice.
And then all of a sudden, people were complaining because of her breastplate. Like, are you fucking? Can we not do this, please? Like.
Yeah, no, I'm totally over all that shit. Like,
they were saying her breastplate was too pronounced or something. That's the new complaint. And it's.
I'm just done with all of it.
You've got this whole thing going on with Johnny Depp right now, and it's total bullshit. Amber Heard is absolutely, by all accounts, just a beautiful fucking monster. And
she's not mentally well, I would say.
No, and she did all that shit. I'm sorry. I'm all about believing victims, but in this case, I think the victim is Johnny Depp, and the fact that he is losing his career over this is just absolute nonsense, utter nonsense. So there's the world right there, you guys. That's where we're at right now.
But it's hard to be in the middle of it, it's like then these Trumpites are like, I hate it when they do that. I'm like, so do I. Yeah. It's like, do you think all liberal-leaning people are that absolutely insufferable? Because if you do, I'm fucking sorry. That's terrible.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that's why a lot of Republicans ended up getting seats this year, is because, people are sick of this democratic liberal notion that, everybody just needs a fucking cry corner. Everybody's offended by something. We need to cancel this person. We need to fucking stop this shit, because they happen to say something 10 years ago. I mean, that's a Democratic mentality. That's not a Republican mentality. And, I mean, if we're going to really do some, fucking damage this year, especially when it comes to the two seats that are available right here where I am in the state of Georgia, we really got to grow some balls. Yeah. You know what I mean? And definitely, Democrats need to represent themselves in a different way, for sure. I don't know. We're getting off topic.
We're getting off on a political rant now, but
yeah, this is becoming like a hardball or something. I've been watching a lot of politics recently. On both sides, trying to figure out things and whatnot. But again, I think this particular topic pertains to one individual that just happens to be leading the country right now. I mean, it'd probably be more effective if we were talking about some sort of hard children or something, because that's, pretty much what he is.
Although, I think Mitch McConnell, I think I might hate him more. I think he might be more
Oh,
evil.
he's pure fucking evil, that dude, for sure.
What I like to say is that Trump is chaotic evil. So like he doesn't really know what he's doing half the time, which is a little bit safer. And then people like Mike Pence and Mitch McConnell are lawful evil, which means they get creepy shit done.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's
yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah. Could it be Satan?
Satan!
So that's our topic tonight, is satanic films. Because we like to stay on topic. And yeah, I think, it's interesting. I think there's a lot of great things when it comes to the subgenre of satanic films. I think a lot of them are a lot of fun to watch. But I also think a lot of them, everybody has this fear of Satanism for whatever reason. And that's, one thing I just want to mention at the very beginning.
Satanic panic.
Yeah, satanic panic, exactly. The whole, the hysteria that went on, with the genre, like, in the 60s and 70s and whatnot. Christ, even, we're both comic book people, but, like even, Marvel comics and stuff got into the game of satanic panic, you know what I mean? Because even though people were scared of it, it was a sellable thing, and people love satanic stories and, just bleh, that kind of stuff. Do want to put it out there that I think Holly and I both realize I am into witchcraft. I'm not a Satanist, but I do also know that Satanists are actually really good people for the most part. So this is about the actual fictional aspects of Satanism. We don't believe.
That's the paradox, is that witchcraft and stuff, like, that's what Christian people think is Satan. But then, like, actual Satanists don't believe in Satan. So it's right. Plus, what I was discovering when I was, getting deeper into this topic was that there's some complex stuff going on here. This subgenre can be broken up into like so many different, just, depictions. Like first, you've got the classic like satanic cult, antichrist, supernatural threat thing.
Right.
Like, like Rosemary's Baby, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or like The Omen. Then I feel like, and then some movies in the 70s were trying to ape that, but they just did the satanic cult part, and they left out like the scary supernatural Satan things, so it became sort of flaccid and boring. So it was like, okay, so there's a satanic cult, but there's no Satan, it's just the cult. That's like, I'm not really a fan of those movies.
Yeah.
And then there are movies that actually have depictions of hell with Satan or Lucifer as, the leader of hell. And then some movies just throw the word Satan in there in the title just to make it sound cool, even though it has nothing to do with Satan. So
yeah, I agree. But you know what? Aside from all the politics that we can put into it, and the religious aspects, and the fact that people are still scared of their own shadow when it comes to Satanism and all that stuff. I mean, satanic movies are really fucking cool, man.
Well, yeah. Well, and I think that's part of why I get so disappointed with movies that just take on the cult aspect, because I'm like, you've got Satan here. This is Satanism is like, has the power to threaten the Christian status quo. That should be so scary, and yet sometimes it just, I don't know. I don't want to talk about movies I don't like, but that's what I found when I was trying to prepare for this episode, was that I kept like trying to watch, like I kept looking into these movies from the 70s and stuff that purported to be satanic and ended up just being about normal cult people.
Yeah.
Which bugged me, but what can you do?
Yeah. No, I get that. I get what you're saying. And also, again, I just want to reiterate that I'm friends with a lot of Satanists. I actually, when it comes to my faith, I might actually lean more towards the sides of Satanism, because like I've seen nothing good from Christianity, Catholicism. If you're going to stand up there and say you're a Christian and talk about Trump being some sort of savior or whatever, I don't subscribe to your bullshit.
Yeah.
That just proves to me that you're you know, like, everything for the majority, you know, everything you're saying is false. But again, there's good Christians, there's good Catholics, there's good Satanists, there's good, you know, everybody. I know that. You know, so to, you know, lump people into, you know, one particular category where everybody's awful, that's horseshit. I don't, you know, I don't do that. But
no, I agree with it. I agree with you there. I just mean the whole concept of like evangelicals, you know,
yeah, oh yeah,
like
yeah.
like trying to be like, you know, you're gonna be damned unless you do this and this and this and this, and I don't know. I just find it to be an incredibly shitty sell on a religion.
It's always the people that, you know, like if they were to open the Ark of the Covenant from Raiders of the Lost Ark, like they would be the first to go. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, face melting.
Don't
which
look
one of
Marion.
which one of the Satan movies that I watched actually has face melting? So
nice. Okay, well let's get into it. So, with that, the topic is Satan and Satanic cult films. We're gonna let Holly go first because that seems like the order of the day for the most
I should
part.
have like candles around the room and like this dim red light and like pentagrams everywhere.
Ding, ding, ding. Oh yeah, for sure. Holly, what is the first on your list for Satanic films?
Well, I don't know. I mean, do we want to start classic and then get contemporary, or do we want to go the other way around?
Let's start classic.
Start classic. Okay.
Yeah, you know why? Because I think, you know, just like any other genre, I think, you know, like everything needs a birthing place, and you know, like when it comes to storytelling and whatnot, and a lot of these movies that came out when it comes to these satanic panic movies, are pretty awful. So it was like interesting when you can actually find one that was actually good, because they came out like, you know, so quick and so fast at a certain time that you know, I mean, a lot of them weren't great.
Well, and in my opinion, I think it's kind of obvious that they were all trying to be Rosemary's Baby.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby from 1968, I believe.
So if we're going to be talking about Rosemary's Baby, there's one thing I do want to bring up, because this doesn't really happen. So Ira Levin actually wrote the book, and he was trying to get it made as a movie before it even got published. So that's kind of interesting.
And yeah, it has happened, but yeah, that's pretty.
And let's just put it out there, because this is very important. I know that somebody's gonna go like, you know, oh well, you know, it's directed by Roman Polanski and blah blah blah. Listen, we get that. I'm not saying, you know, like
nobody's condoning Roman Polanski's personal shenanigans.
But this is a great fucking movie.
It's a great fucking film. It really, really is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just rewatched it again recently, and it has this incredible air of like innocence at first, and I think maybe that's part of what makes it more sinister. Is like, you know, these Satanists, like they're not like, you know, running around in hooded robes with like, you know, like chalices and stuff. Like these are regular rich people in a high rise, you know, and to me that's even scarier, you know, like thinking that your friendly neighbor is secretly conspiring to fuck you up. But anyway, I mean,
yeah, but it's so weird, you know, and that's something we'll probably get into later on in the conversation of this particular film. But it seems like, and maybe probably one of the first and only times that, you know, like a satanic cult is almost seen as sort of nurturing and
they're like a socialite club. They're like, you know, it's like you go into the card room to have drinks and smokes with these people who happen to be, you know, nurturing the Antichrist.
Yeah, they just want, you know, they just want like you know, a nice, you know, birth, you know, when it comes to, you know, Rosemary and her safety and the safety of the baby. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
you know, because there's no, I mean, obviously they, you know, they're watching her, you know, like in her dreamlike state, you know, getting raped by, you know, by a demon.
Yeah, that sequence is still really, really intense.
Yeah. So let's talk about the opening, obviously. It seems like a lot of films, especially based in New York, are, you know, this couple, you know, like they're moving into this, you know, like this old brownstone or whatever, and it just happens to have all this, you know, like mystery and murder and witchcraft attached to it or whatever, and they just go, we're gonna go move in anyway.
The ultimate white people move.
Yeah.
That's what I say. It's like, oh my god. Oh, and also, I mean, even the title sequence for this film is like it's in pink and like cursive against the backdrop of New York. It's like la 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 la, like, you know, we're wealthy, you know, good people.
Yeah.
Nothing bad's gonna happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So her husband's an actor, and they both move into this building, and they they basically start meeting the tenants of the building. One happens to be this old couple, and so they're like I said, they're very kind and approachable, to a certain point, and then
a little invasive, but yes,
very invasive, to the point where even Rosemary herself says these tenants are annoying. I don't want anything to do with them. Like there's constantly in my apartment up my ass, and this is driving me nuts.
Yeah.
So of course her and her husband Guy are attempting to conceive, to have a child. And then there's a moment where they actually bring like a chocolate mousse to the proceedings.
The old, I forget the old woman's name, part of the couple, but she makes the mousse.
Yeah. And Rosemary basically says, mine is, terrible. Like, it's not great. So she ends up going to bed that night, and she has this very, LSD, trance-like moment where she's looking into the eyes of a demon. That's
she's been drugged through the mousse. Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting too, though, is that her husband sort of gets, indoctrinated really quickly, because remember he talks to the old man next door when they're having dinner, and then he goes over again the next day, and you think it's like, all innocent, like, old time storytelling or whatever. And
dude, there's a moment where she wakes up after that and she's got scratches all over her body, and her husband literally says to her, and I quote, "I was the one who raped you because I didn't want to miss baby night." What the fuck?
Right? He's like, "Sorry, I'll try to be more gentle next time, and I thought you were trying for a baby." And it's like, this whole thing is incredibly weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
But but again, back pre women's liberation and all that stuff, it's not rape if it's your husband, because you're married.
That's very true. Yeah, that's very true. And if you know the story of Mia Farrow, she was with a very controlling man at the time. She was married to Frank Sinatra, and that's why she actually got the gig, because she never necessarily had any starring roles when it came to features and stuff. She did have a successful run on television with a show called Peyton Place, but the reason why she got so much acclaim and popularity in the public eye was because of Frank Sinatra. And Sinatra literally went on the set and was just like, you need to go. I told you, we're not going to do this, you're not going to do this fucking movie. I don't want you to fucking have your own career. And Cassavetes literally got in fucking Sinatra's face and was like, listen, dude, you need to get the fuck out of here. Because nobody fucks with Cassavetes.
Oh, dude, I wouldn't fuck with Cassavetes. Jesus. But yeah, it's well, and of course, one of the main plot points is that as this film progresses, either the people who are trying to help Rosemary and like enlighten her on what this group of people might be doing, or people who are getting in the way of their success keep getting bumped off, or horrible things keep happening to them.
Yeah. And she's actually she's appointed a natal doctor by them. She can't even go to see her own doctor. And
I'm like, that's when you should have
yeah,
it's a little weird.
Yeah, for sure. So go to our doctor, and if you try to go to your own doctor, then we're just going to constantly, persuade you to not see that guy. You know what I mean? Because he obviously doesn't know what he's talking about, and our physician does. It's very controlling. Very controlling. But you know, at the same time, like, you know, we're saying, you know, when it comes to the actual birth and stuff, you know, it seems like they're all very like, oh, we just wanted what's best for you and the Antichrist.
Right? Yeah, and then you know she goes over to see the cradle, and like you get that one glimpse, like flash
Yeah.
of what this baby looks like, and you're just like, oh shit.
He has his father's eyes.
Yeah.
Hmm. And
And
she's
but
getting
but, but
ready to she's getting this ready to stab the little fucker. And then she, you know, goes over and kind of goes, oh, all right. I mean, it's my baby.
it's still my baby, you know, and then she starts rocking it and it stops crying and it's like, oh boy.
Oh, what a horrifying wail, by the way, you know, coming out of that, you know, little bassinet. I mean, it sounds like a monster when it's crying. It's like,
Yeah, yeah. Um, so really insidious stuff. I think the juxtaposition of the hoity-toity like rich person lifestyle with the sort of creepy like closing in of the cult is really still really effective.
yeah.
And I also think that a lot of movies that came out afterwards were trying to be Rosemary's Baby.
And you know, the other thing that's interesting is that, you know, like Mia Farrow obviously wasn't the first choice, and you know, I think this is even before, we'll say, Polanski's tainted, you know, history. But I think he initially wanted his wife Sharon Tate to play Rosemary. I think that was the first choice, which, you know, I mean, would have been interesting to say the least. Um, but I mean, you know, even without the, you know, the credits that Mia didn't have at the time, you know, like, and she was actually I think the only reason she actually did agree to do this is that she was promised that she was going to be nominated for an Oscar, which unfortunately wasn't, which is crazy. And Holly and I have mentioned many times over how we, you know, obviously like have a distaste, you know, for the fact that Oscars don't, you know, mostly not, you know, don't nominate horror films.
Oh yeah, they totally ignore genre for the main part.
Especially then. So, you know, since we're getting into, you know, Rosemary's Baby territory, I mean, you said there was so many, you know, different, like, you know, rehashes and, you know, like when it comes to like ideas and whatnot. And one of them I wanted to talk about, which is really, I wouldn't necessarily call it similar, um, but it is, you know, based in a brownstone in New York. And a lot of people called this like one of the worst films ever made, you know, especially in this subgenre. There was a couple critics that actually, you know, rifled back and said at the very least, the last scene of the film is very effective and probably one of the most terrifying things they ever saw. So I wanted to talk about The Sentinel really quick, which I think has a great idea to it. You know, the fact that this woman, you know, just like in a Rosemary's Baby situation, she moves into this brownstone in New York City. And when she moves there is a blind priest that lives upstairs. And there are other tenants, you know, within the building and stuff. And again, you know, just like, you know, Rosemary's situation in the beginning, you know, she thinks the tenants are annoying and whatnot, and, you know, makes a bunch of complaints. And then, you know, it's basically discovered, you know, the landlord comes through and like shows her all the different apartment buildings are empty. So there is that, you know, there's already that situation of, huh? Like there was people here. What happened? And she says, you know, no, there's, you know, one blind priest that, you know, lives upstairs, and, you know, like that's pretty much it. And, you know, there's this whole, you know, situation where, you know, like she has this this boyfriend Michael, and, you know, like basically he, you know, she starts going, you know, having all these, you know, situations, you know, with her body, and, you know, she's, you know, having dizzy spells and all kinds of stuff in this apartment, all these hallucinations and whatnot. So her boyfriend Michael actually, you know, puts a detective on the case, this, you know, corrupt detective, to try to, you know, like figure out what's going on with her and whatnot. And then, you know, she starts seeing hallucinations of like her abusive father that, you know, died like, you know, weeks before. And, you know, she's, you know, basically placed in a situation where like she doesn't necessarily, you know, like know really what's going on. And you know, she's found with like blood on her, and you know, they don't know where the blood came from. And it just, basically just this idea of, is this situation really happening with her? Is it all, a dreamlike, thing or whatever? That seems to be, like kind of the subtext for a lot of satanic films is like, am I really going through this, or is it all in my head kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And, and I think the most fascinating thing about it is that, this woman, was suicidal, and, she attempted to take her life quite a few times, throughout her life. And it turns out that the people that are in the building, the ones that aren't there, she actually has, like, situations where this old man, like, invites her to this, like, birthday party for his cat, which is really weird. So she's, actually seeing,
ding.
yeah, right. So she's actually, seeing people within the building and whatnot. But yeah, so she just keeps, like, slipping further into madness and stuff. And, like, people, are basically, like, they're finding bodies of, the detective that was on the case, for her. And these other two detectives are, on the case at, a certain point. And supposedly, like, her boyfriend had, possibly, like, killed his wife to be with her. And there's all these different, plots, subplots, within and whatnot. But like I said, I think the most interesting thing is that she finds out that this priest had also tried to commit suicide, this blind priest. And he was a predecessor for the next person to, to take over in this brownstone, because it's kind of the gateway to hell. And he's called the Sentinel. Like, basically, like, it's your job to sit there in the building and make sure that, like, the portals of hell are protected. You know what I mean? So the people within the building that she was seeing the entire time are, murderers from the past. So and it's his job to keep that gate closed. And it turns out, like, when her boyfriend's doing his own investigation and stuff, when these detectives actually end up getting murdered, he discovers that she is actually the next sentinel, because she, tried to commit suicide in the past. And to, pretty much, like, save her soul or whatever, she has to sit down in the seat of the priest and take over the job.
Okay. So the suicide thing is considered suicide is considered a sin, so you sort of have to absolve it.
Right. So to abstain, you have to, kind of take over the position and whatnot.
I see.
And, by the end of the movie, like, the brownstone's knocked down, and then this other person moves in, and she's told that there's only two people that live there. It's a violinist, and it happens to be a blind nun upstairs, and it happens to be her taking over the job from the priest as the Sentinel. Mm-hmm. And, listen, it's a great idea on paper, but apparently it didn't work too well when it came out. But I would love to see that idea played upon in a modern film. I think there's some levity there for a great story, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, is that I know, like, now that we're sort of past the satanic panic and Satan as, like, an actual threat is sort of not as prescient as it was in the 70s. Mm-hmm. I still think that a lot of those concepts and just threads of, like, hell and Satan, and it could be brought into a modern film and have it be
and done well. Yeah,
scary. Yeah. Like, and you don't have to put God into it or angels or any of that shit either.
Yeah.
Like honestly, in the majority of the films that I talk about, and the majority of the films that I've looked at for Satanism, they don't even mention God.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Just like, God, who, what? Okay, there's hell, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe that's why people are scared to tackle it nowadays, because they have to deal with the whole religious fundamentalism thing. But I don't know. I think there are a lot of untouched potential plots when it comes to that stuff.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. What's next on your list?
Well, I was talking about how most of the time when it's just the satanic cult and there's no like actual Satan, it gets boring and sort of repetitive and not scary. Like stuff like, you know, the Brotherhood of Satan and all these other movies where it's just like, you know, old people in robes. It's like, like I'm not really terrified by old people in robes.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like secular stuff that doesn't necessarily have any supernatural influence, there is one exception that I think combines the trope of Satanism with some really disturbing shit in a very effective way. And that's, I don't know if you've seen I Drink Your Blood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
From 1970. Yeah. David Durson's I Drink Your Blood, which funnily enough, the title has nothing to do with the actual movie because I think they were putting it out on a double bill with another movie that they called I Eat Your Skin. Yeah. And you know how it was back then. They were like, yes, double feature. I drink your blood. I eat your skin. But you know, I mean, the actual movie.
Whatever they had the budget for at the time.
Yeah, and whatever would get people to pack a seats. I mean, that's all they wanted. But I Drink Your Blood is a really, really unique film that does begin by following a group of hippies who are Satanists, practicing Satanists. And although the threat of Satan is never like present in their rituals, really, they still do some really fucked up shit. They push this old grandfather to the ground and like force him to take LSD and all this really horrible stuff.
You know, what's interesting, you bring that up, you know, before you finish, but like, it seems like, you know, when these Satanic Panic films came out, it was almost like, it was around the, you know, the era of, you know, like Ginsberg and Timothy Leary and all these, you know, guys that were like, you know, appropriating LSD and, you know, tripping and stuff. It seems like they were almost kind of lumped into one category. You know what I mean?
It was
like
also the birth of the serial killer era.
Yeah.
It was also the birth of like the serial killer craze, you know, wherever it was. So it's where, you know, like people like,
right. Like if you took LSD, you were just going to fucking stab someone to death.
Right. And if you took LSD and you were a Satanist, then you're a serial killer.
Or even just a hippie. Like you're just going to kill somebody.
Hippie. And that's another interesting thing is that when these hippies roll into this small town, it definitely has a sort of air of like, you know, who are these hippies? Like the people in the town are kind of like, you know, like they definitely have a suspicion towards them that would have been appropriate at the time because.
Right. Well, that was the breakdown of the establishment of the nuclear family and completely like anti everything that came, you know, before, and people were terrified of that shit. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. And they represented that chaos, that anarchy.
Through love, which is weird.
The clincher.
People were afraid of love.
You know, free love. Free love. Oh my God, it's anarchy. Oh my God. The clincher, though, what makes this film, what really makes it eminently watchable and just totally insane is the revenge cycle, which the girl gets raped. The grandfather tries to avenge her and goes over and they fuck him up and give him drugs and all sorts of stuff. And the grandfather's kid who runs who works in the diner in the town, pretty much like the local. It's kind of like the local bakery diner, you know, like everybody goes there to get their stuff. You know, he's made aware of this, and he decides to get revenge on the hippies by injecting their order of meat pies with blood from a rabid dog, which is really gnarly. It's basically the hippies like make this giant order of meat pies because they're like all high and tripping. Like, yeah, you know, they all have the munchies and stuff.
Right, you know, because, you know, like you do have those moments, I guess, you know, when I was, you know, stoned and, you know, like
dude, meat pies are amazing.
I'm not knocking meat pies together that you would never, like, you know, eat as a normal human being that wasn't high. It makes sense. I guess you would put dog blood into the fucking.
I'm not knocking meat pies, man. I love those things. But the sequence where like this little kid has like a giant syringe and he's like injecting these pies with blood is just, it's like, wow, dude, wow, kid, you this is big time stuff. And then the rest of the movie, of course, after the hippies eat the pies, is, you know, frothing at the mouth, rabid killing, cannibalism, axes, dismemberment, just total chaos.
I want to talk about one that, you know, really it's such a linear plot. Like there's not really, you know, too much involved, you know, like deeply involved. But you know, we do get to talk about Sir Christopher Lee. So let's talk about To the Devil a Daughter.
Hammer!
Which is I think Christopher Lee's last Hammer film for many, many years.
It was Hammer's last film that they released in the 70s before they went bankrupt, and then.
And it could be the fact that Nastasha Kinski was only 14 years old when she did a noon scene in that movie. So I mean, could very well, you know, could have been the you know, thing that maybe tainted Hammer a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, but it was Hammer's final film before
it went bankrupt.
Before bankrupting and emerging 30 years later to put up.
So basically, it's just like, you know, it's an occult writer who was asked by his friend to, you know, pick up his daughter from the airport. And apparently this guy was only able to see his daughter, played by Nastasha Kinski. If you guys aren't familiar, she was in the remake of Cat People, which is excellent. Hopefully we get to talk about that movie one day, because there's a lot to talk about. But, you know, she was 14 years old when she did this movie. And like I said, there's this occult writer, as you know, like he is charged to pick her up from the airport. She was part of some sacristy as a nun in Bavaria, and I guess her father was only able to see her on her birthday. That was the only time he was able to visit her. And this place in Bavaria is run by an excommunicated priest played by the great Sir Christopher Lee. And basically, you know, she comes back home. The writer is actually charged to, you know, take her back to his house and whatnot. And you know, in you know, like any satanic fashion, you know, like she was basically supposed to be the vessel of, you know, this ultimate demonic being on her 18th birthday, and you know, like there's this whole, you know, battle between good and evil when it comes to, like, you know, Christopher Lee and, you know, like this group, you know, like you know, trying to get her back and whatnot. And like I said, there's really not a lot to it, to the point where again, I think this is another thing that, you know, like this particular film had issues with, is that a lot of people felt like the movie didn't have an ending. Like, it just didn't. You know what I mean? It just kind of, you know, you had this story, and then, like, you know, at the end of the movie, it just kind of fell flat, and people just were just like, you know, it's almost like they ran out of road when it came to the script or whatever.
And clearly when it came to movies as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. although Hammer did put out a bunch of good devil-themed movies. Like, if I had to bring one up, it would be The Devil Rides Out, which I think actually.
Right, and this was kind of like this was a precursor to that, to The Devil Rides Out.
Yeah, I think I talked about The Devil Rides Out on our British horror episode, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I love that movie. I think it's great. It's one of the few films where Christopher Lee gets to play the good guy. Mm-hmm. But they also, you know, a bunch of the Dracula stuff, like they titled Satanic Rites of Dracula and stuff like that. So they were very, Hammer was very much into using the Satanism thing as a promotional vehicle.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, but, you know, like we said, you know, like, I mean, so many of these movies were coming out, you know, at such a, you know, fast click at this particular point in time, that it was really hard to, like, you know, pick ones that were, you know, were good and memorable. You know what I mean? And this one, you know, had a lot of great potential. And, you know, like I said, it just seemed like we don't need an ending. It's fine.
Like, you've been shocked sufficiently. Time to stop.
Or maybe just Hammer just, like, literally had, you know, like, no pounds left, and they just
ran out of money.
Just out of money completely. Like,
that'd be an interesting story to learn.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we already talked about this before. It's still, you know, to this day, especially, you know, now, You know, I guess it started with you know, the Woman in Black. You know, before that.
Yeah. The Woman in Black remake and
It really gives me joy to see Hammer at the beginning of any film to this day. It really just like, you know, doesn't hurt.
Most recently, The Lodge, I think.
The Lodge, yeah, the last Hammer film, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very cool.
What's next on your list?
Well, still gonna stick in the 70s just because there's so much material there.
It's a satanic panic for a reason. I mean, it just keeps like one after the other.
Well, and this one is sort of also in the realm of nunsploitation, which was also a thing. Like with the film Alucarda, I believe, which I brought up in our queer horror episode about the lesbian nuns and the fiery cautionary tale and all the Satanism stuff there. But this one is although it's
I you know, that's another thing too, you know, like I get it, but I kind of don't. I mean I can understand why. I mean there's a fetish, like a major fetish, for nuns, and I kind of get it and I kind of don't, but I guess it has to do with the fact that, you know, they're supposed to be innocent and chaste, you know, they're the wives of God, and, you know, like somehow that's, you know, that's a turn on because it's like, you know, oh yeah, I can fucking turn her out, I guess, you know. Like I don't know, I don't get it.
Well, I mean, at least in this film, Satanico Pandemonium, which of course, as we all know, is Salma Hayek's name.
Salma Hayek's character,
which is the first time I ever heard that name. Satanico Pandemonium. Although to be perfectly honest, I think the alternate title of this film is probably more appropriate, La Sexorcista.
Yes. Yeah, which was actually that was Rob Zombie actually pulled that. Speaking of To the Devil a Daughter, there's actually a really great line that Sir Christopher Lee says in that movie, that's in I think it's in Supercharger Heaven, Rob Zombie's.
He's always sampling Christopher Lee. What was the other one? The City of the Dead, with the whole witch monologue. He samples that one too.
Yep. But La Sexorcista was actually the first major White Zombie album, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Fucking love
it. Well, just Satanico Pandemonium, which, I mean, it's a Mexican film. You know, the director had also done a bunch of like El Santo films, like wrestling, like, you know, cheap stuff, and so there's like no budget for this thing. But and so and for that reason they can't really do like a big, you know, Satan reveal or whatever. Like the character of Satan in the movie is just a kind of handsome dude who walks around, and he comes naked out of the river to basically present an apple to this sister, this nun, who gets freaked out and runs away because, you know, that's the temptation.
Well, I mean, it definitely makes sense that, you know, Satan, you know, obviously they play on it, you know, very, very much so on the Lucifer TV show. You know, Satan is supposed to be, you know, chiseled abs and beautiful face and just completely fucking seductive.
Yeah.
It makes
sense. Supposed to be tempting. Exactly. Yeah. And in that way, the movie does that very well. Mm-hmm. But it's sort of a slow descent into like the main character, Sister Maria, is, you know, she starts off the film like she's collecting flowers and she's just like, yay, you know, Lord, and she's befriending, you know, the nuns who are, you know, sort of bullied and tormented by the other nuns. She's just like this beacon of goodwill. Slowly, you know, she sort of falls off the deep end. The first major part of it is when another nun comes to confess her love to her, and they immediately start making out, like immediate lesbian stuff.
Oh yeah.
Because that, you know, lesbian. If there's any people love more than nuns, it's lesbian nuns.
That's for sure. It'd be on a T-shirt.
Right, but then you know, it's every temptation turns out to be Lucifer, Satan. Like it morphs back into him, and she tries to seduce like this preteen farm boy that she was friendly with, and then when he says no, like she burns down his whole house with his grandmother in it just so they won't tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
Like it's just she goes to the other side, and then of course she murders the mother superior of the convent, and subsequently runs away. And there's a very interesting way this ends in that you think she's repenting, even though Satan is right there. You think she's repenting and being like, I'm sorry, you know, like, and you see that there's a procession of nuns coming up to where she's run off and hidden in the caves in the mountains. And you think they're going to kill her, or, you know, going to basically lock her up or punish her. And then when they get there, they all kneel and they start saying, "You are our new mother superior." Mm-hmm. And then you're like, oh, okay, so Satan just took over the whole convent.
Oh wow.
And they go back and Satan like leads Sister Maria, you know, up the steps and opens the door, and everybody's naked and eating fruit and like making out with each other and all sorts of great stuff. Man. It's like, are you really supposed to side against Satan here? Because that doesn't look that bad.
That sounds great.
To what the nuns were doing previously. It's like they had to eat this gross brown paste and like just sit there like. And then she opens the door and it's like, yay, fruit, nakedness. Yeah. It's like, shit, man, I take the fruit and nakedness.
You know, it's interesting you say that because, you know, like we were mentioning before, you know, when it comes to, you know, Robert Eggers and, you know, like obviously the witch was in our witchcraft episode, but it can also, you know, get into satanic territory. But, you know, even though like, you know, she was technically, you know, unwilling, you know, like it seems this, you know, particular character is, it almost, you know, feels like, you know, for a lot of these films, I'm sure he you know, like pulled a lot of it from the film you're talking about, or films of that nature, is that Satanism, you know, like does feel like, you know, sexual and liberating, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I want to actually, you know, venture out a bit, and I want to talk about a satanic film that just was so ingenious for its time, you know, and it did become a cult classic. I don't think it was a massive hit for John Carpenter, but like this type of satanic film has never been done. You know, when you're adding, you know, like matter and science and quantum physics to the equation of Satanism, Prince of Darkness is fascinating, I think. So, you know, basically, you know, so this priest invites these, you know, quantum physics professors basically to this church in Los Angeles. And he finds this, you know, basically it's just this like this huge vial of this, you know, like this matter that, you know, you know, like, I guess they don't know at this particular point, but it feels like it's sentient, like it actually, you know, like it can sense feeling, and you know, it's living and it's breathing, and they don't know where exactly, you know, it came from. There was an organization that, you know, owned the church before, and I guess, you know, like this, you know, is sort of, you know, attached to that, you know, their history and whatnot. But again, like what's really fascinating about Prince of Darkness for me is that, you know, Carpenter was really interested in, you know, like really adding, you know, some sort of science, you know, to the equation of a satanic film, and it's never been done before, and you know, to many degrees, you know, brilliant, you know, in that regard, that he was, you know, I mean, a lot of people like know how much you know, like I just adore John Carpenter.
How can you not?
Yeah. You know, the fact that, you know, he takes just so many risks, and this is another one that you know, that he took a risk with. So, you know, I mean, it's basically like, you know, it's got your pretty much your who's who of John Carpenter people. You know, people from Big Trouble in Little China, people from Halloween, you know, because that's what John does. You know, he likes to work with people that he's comfortable with. I think this was actually great character actor Peter Jason. I think this is actually his first movie where he shows up. But the rest is kind of like a who's who of John Carpenter films, which, I mean, that in itself is excellent. And of course, you've got Alice Cooper, who is leading this crew of homeless people outside, and they turn out to be like, I guess the disciples or the soldiers of this, particular, like ooze that's, in this vial or whatever, which doesn't turn out to be Satan. It's actually, it's a deity that's higher than Satan, sort of, you know what I mean? Like it's more pronounced than Satan when it comes to power and whatnot, which is interesting, because again, we're breaking away from certain tropes.
Yeah.
But of course, like when this ooze gets out of this vial and like it gets on your skin, like people become possessed, and they're all having this this moment. It's almost like they're having this cycle in their head where they're all kind of seeing this future, where this one shadowy figure steps out of this church in a timeline that they pretty much they get to the point where they realize it's actually 1999 that this happens. So I guess at that point they're looking at the end of days or whatever.
Yeah. In the mid 90s, everyone was obsessed with naming 1999 as the apocalypse.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Y2K and everything. Everyone thought we were doomed.
Yeah, this is way before 1999, which is fascinating. So basically, like these people become possessed, and people are trying to save themselves from these possessed people, and every time you go outside, this homeless horde is like trying to kill you off, so you can't get out of the church, and and like I said, the ending is basically this ooze gets on this woman Kelly, and she becomes this this anti-god pretty much. And she's trying to, pull the actual real anti-god from a mirror. It turns out to be too small and whatever. And, one of the characters is able to, kind of, defeat the evil or, or whatever by pushing herself and himself through the fucking mirror and, kind of breaking this, whole, ritual, from actually happening. So somehow through that actually, preventing this situation that occurs in 1999. Which is, obviously, like, the plot is pretty, thick when it comes to, all this different text and explanation and whatnot. But, even though the movie didn't do great, I think it's one of John Carpenter's best, but I'm biased. I love everything John Carpenter does for different reasons. But I just love that he took a swing at the satanic film and did it like nobody else. Nobody's ever tried to, like equate some sort of science or, something technology to it. And I thought that was pretty brilliant in itself. What's next on your list?
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go into the 80s with one of a movie that I actually hadn't seen until last year. Mm-hmm. Which I feel terrible about because it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Because my boss told me to watch it because we were publishing a comic book series about a private detective mm-hmm. who gets caught up in a satanic cult. Mm-hmm. Well, not really a satanic one, but just a cult in general. Yeah. And he was trying to describe the attitude of this detective to us, and he told me and my coworker to go watch this movie. And I had never heard of it. I was like, what? And he said, no, go watch Angel Heart. I had never heard of this movie. And when I finished it, I was so boggled that I'd never heard of it because it's a goddamn masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's just so good. And it's.
So before before we start on the summary, the plot of it, I think this was another novel that, obviously it took a bunch of liberties and whatnot. And, a lot of people didn't want to make it until I think Alan Parker got his hands on it. Rest in peace, Alan Parker. And he ended up rewriting the script, to his own devices. And I guess the author was okay with him, basing the story in Louisiana. He was just like, yeah, I would have done that too. So it actually worked out.
Well, and also it does the ultimate, like, what I love about like a creative project is when it can sort of like totally switch genres like right in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
and still like hold you till the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie sort of does that. It follows a detective played by Mickey Rourke named Harry Angel,
Harry Angel.
who is hired by
Or Angle, if it was Hot Fuzz.
or those people who always get angel tattooed on themselves. And they
Morning Angle.
Anyway, obviously, the name Harry Angel is significant in this case, but he gets hired by mysterious rich guru Robert De Niro.
Louis Cypher.
Mm-hmm. Who needs Detective Angel to basically track down a man who sort of disappeared. That he
Johnny Favorite.
Yeah, named Johnny Favorite, who who owed debts to him, so to speak. And he needed Harry Angel to figure out what had happened to him, and so he could, settle his debts. and so the first hour and 15 of the movie is, really atmospheric, dirty crime noir.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And it does it really, really well. I mean, the music is great. Harry Angel has hallucinations, what you think are hallucinations throughout the film, that are super creepy and just add this sort of like unnerving sense to the proceedings.
Mm-hmm. So the case begins when Harry Angel is actually looking into trying to find this Johnny Favorite guy, who is pretty much like a famed jazz musician. And he was in a psychiatric center, and he was actually disfigured, and then he disappeared from the psychiatric center. And then it turns out that the doctor was giving misleading information and fake news, and
even bribed.
Everything that he was saying was was false when it came to whereabouts of Johnny and where's pretty much his person went. It just disappeared, and it happens that there was 2 individuals that actually ended up taking him out of the hospital, but they're mysterious at this point. You don't necessarily know who it is until the story starts to unravel in New Orleans, of all places.
Yeah, and basically they bribed the doctor into changing the records so it says that Johnny is still at the hospital, and he's not. He's been taken out, and they go down to New Orleans, and what ends up happening is, like, as Harry Angel interrogates these people who may have been connected to Johnny Favorite, he's pretty rough with them, like the way a hard-boiled detective is in these movies.
He's Marvin Sin City.
Yeah. I mean, he played it once, why not again?
Yeah. I mean, if he's gonna get answers, he's just gonna beat it out of you.
Yeah. But he doesn't really like hurt anybody in a serious way.
Yeah.
But these people that he's interviewed keep turning up dead, like killed violently by someone, and so he, Harry Angel gets really suspicious. He figures maybe it's actually Johnny Favorite come back who's killing these people, or maybe he meets with Louis Cypher a couple more times and is like, dude, I don't want
any part of this. And he says,
"Are you setting me up?
Money. I'll give you more money. You give me what I want. I'll give you more money." And he goes, "All right, yeah, sounds like a deal. I'll do it. I'll keep doing it." And when he gets to New Orleans, he actually discovers that Johnny Favorite was married, and he also had a mistress, and the mistress ended up passing away and left. Obviously, it was like she had a daughter, and like he kind of gets into some sexual shit with her for no reason.
Heteronormativity. Do we need another reason?
as you know, as 80 films are wont to do, you know, they just have this sexual tryst that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever when it comes to the narrative. But
you know, in Harry Angel's defense, he wasn't doing anything. It was all her.
that's very true. That's very true.
Um,
And it was she's played by Rae Dawn Chong, who was in tons of movies back in those days. Obviously, Tales from the Dark Side, which we mentioned, our anthology films, and you know, Commando. She was in that, and you know, she was just killing it back in those days. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can give we can give away the ending. I don't know if I really want to give away the ending, but basically, the gist of it is that Louis Cypher is Lucifer.
Right. It's a homophone for Lucifer. So he happens to be Mephistopheles, and he is, you know, was looking for the soul of Johnny Favorite, and then it turns out that Harry Angel is Johnny Favorite.
Yeah. Basically, Johnny Favorite had conducted a satanic ritual to steal the soul of a young soldier named Harry Angel. Mm-hmm. And because he had sold his soul to the devil before, so he wanted to escape the devil by pretending to be someone else. And what I love about...
So hold on a second. So let's talk about, like, this is so fucked up. So basically, no, it really is. So Johnny Favorite eats the heart of a soldier, you know, to, you know, basically, like, you know, kind of change or alter the deal that he has with Louis Cypher, and then gets drafted. Becomes disfigured in the war, and then comes back. It's crazy.
Yeah. And he, of course, Harry Angel realizes that since he is Johnny Favorite, the Mephistopheles had been manipulating him the entire time to actually perform these murders. Mm-hmm. And what I love so much about this portrayal of Satan by Robert De Niro is that it's absolutely subtle as fuck.
Yeah.
And you don't need, like I think at one point in the movies, like, you know, would it be more dramatic if I had like a forked tail or something, or horns or whatever? I love it so much, but there's been imagery throughout the film that you're not sure what it means, but of Harry Angel basically going down this endless elevator shaft. Mm-hmm. And then you know, when you get to the end and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna burn in hell, and then it ends with him going down in the elevator shaft. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh shit, that's...
Yeah, because you know, basically, like, he's told by the authorities, like, you know, you're gonna burn for this. And he goes, yeah, no, in hell, I get it.
In hell, yeah.
So I'm gonna talk about you know, this is just fun. This movie's fun as shit to watch. And I remember when it came out, and I'm, you know, like, I still love it to this day because it's so popcorn and silly, and it just works on so many levels. You know, I mean, a satanic, you know, End of Days is what I'm going to talk about. A satanic film with Arnold Schwarzenegger as the lead. Come on. Let's talk about End of Days. So basically, if you guys aren't familiar with End of Days, this is just a blockbuster, fun movie, you know, with Arnold Schwarzenegger as the lead. We basically travel back into the past where, you know, there's this, you know, this whole situation with, you know, a constellation, and that basically signals that this child is eventually going to be the bearer of Satan's offspring, as, you know, most of these films tend to do. And
always an offspring.
Yeah. So there's these, you know, she's basically, you know, like put in the care of this one woman, you know, who's charged to, you know, take care of her, you know, for her entire existence until she gets to this point in 1999. And of course,
1999, man, there you go again.
Huh?
I said 1999 again.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And then there's also the, you know, the Catholic priest side, and, you know, like, these Vatican knights are trying to kill her, you know, before the devil even gets to her.
I love the Satanist movies with the Vatican as like the front line.
Yeah. They're warriors and shit. Yeah. So basically, you know, Arnold is this, you know, disgruntled, drunk, depressed security guard. Like, he used to be like a really top cop, and I guess his family was murdered, through a contract killing, as a lot of these movies happen, that somebody walked through the apartment and ended up, like
shot everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So he becomes this disgraced, security guard. I mean, Christ, he's got a fucking, Kevin Pollak plays his partner, and his name is Bobby Chicago. I mean, this is the kind of movie we're talking about here.
I haven't actually seen it, but it already sounds amazing.
So, of course, Satan does come, and he ends up, taking over the body of a, attractive stockbroker, Gabriel Byrne, and, immediately just starts annihilating people, like, just blows up this fucking restaurant. But Arnold is basically charged to protect this stockbroker, because he's being terrorized by this guy who looks like a priest or whatever, and they end up catching the priest, and when he's trying to kill Gabriel Byrne, and they shoot him, and then he finds out when he went to the hospital that the precinct, the woman who runs the precinct says the guy didn't have a tongue, and he actually says something to Arnold Schwarzenegger, says actual words to him, but he doesn't have a tongue. So then it goes into this whole Seven situation with this guy, and they kick into his apartment door, and they find his tongue in a jar and all these different books and stuff, and then it basically the girl, the newborn that was actually charged to be Satan's vessel, when she grows up, she is Robin Tunney, from The Craft. And of course, she is she's still under the care of this woman, and she's constantly being attacked by these Vatican knights that are trying to kill her off before this actually happens and stuff. So that you've got this whole ticking time bomb situation where Arnold's trying to find her, the devil's trying to find her, the Vatican knights are trying to kill her. It's just a fun fucking movie. So Arnold does eventually find her, and gets into this scrap, this huge fight with this old woman that's protecting Robin Tunney's character. And, she's got superhuman strength, and she's throwing fucking Arnold across the room and shit. And it's pretty wild. So he gets Robin Tunney, and, he gets to a point where he's able to protect her from, the police department and all these different people that kind of, turn out to be Satan's, disciples or whatever. They're trying to get to her too. And there's a great scene, one of my most favorite scenes of all time. Everybody talks about Hasta La Vista, baby, and, all this fucking shit that Arnold Schwarzenegger said, but there's this really great scene where Gabriel Byrne knows that he has his Robin Tunney, with this, Catholic priest, safe, and he's trying to figure out where she is. And he tells him, if you give me what I want, I'll give you your family back, basically, you know what I mean? And, basically just tempting him, with this idea that he can, get his family back. Yeah, and Arnold Schwarzenegger basically just fucking loses his shit, and he goes,
"You will never see the girl."
Oh, you see, now you're upsetting me. You don't want to see me upset, believe me.
Oh, you want to fuck with me? You think you know bad, huh? You're a fucking choir boy compared to me. A choir boy.
You're in touch with your anger. I really like that. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna have a drink.
You're nothing but a fucking choir boy. So, we get into these action set pieces where, this guy that's supposed to be protecting Robin Tunney is attempting to kill her when she says oh yeah, you just leave her here and, we'll make sure she's safe. So Arnold, saves her from the fucking, from the priests that are trying to kill her. There's this whole set piece where they're, in a subway, and, he shoots Satan with a bazooka. I guess the main thing is that Arnold Schwarzenegger lost his faith after his family died. So they end up in a church at the end of the movie. He regains his faith back all of a sudden.
He's like, oh, wait, the devil exists.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that, there's actually there's a pretty precise timeline. So Gabriel Byrne has to find Robin Tunney and impregnate her between the hours of 11 and 12 a.m.
Damn, that's specific.
That's specific, yeah.
No foreplay. None.
No foreplay. No, just get it done. Between the hours of 11, you got an hour, dude. this is your prophecy. I just like it's just funny that that would actually be like written in some scripture somewhere, like oh, if you find your vessel, she has to be impregnated by between the hours of 11.
Chop
chop chop, motherfucker.
Come on, we're waiting.
Smart regains his faith, and he come basically the devil comes as this like really, I don't know, didn't really work well CG demon, and goes inside Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger tries to rape Robert Downey, and he's able to break free, and he impales himself on I think it's Archangel Michael's sword. I think there's a statue that he just kind of and that like he stops the end of days. But yeah, the director was supposedly chosen by James Cameron. Many people, including Schwarzenegger, said this guy had no fucking clue what he was doing. So the movie didn't turn out to the specs that they were wanting. When it came to this, not only just a blockbuster, but something that critics and audiences would love, didn't quite work out that way. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just a fun.
Sounds like a fun time to me.
It's
man.
so
Shit.
fun to watch. Yeah, it's such a fun actioner, and that's all it is. It's just a silly fucking actioner. Arnold Schwarzenegger against the devil. I mean, come on.
Yeah, man.
What's next on your list?
The movie's called Highway to Hell.
Okay.
Stars Chad Lowe and Christy Swanson
Mm-hmm.
as a couple who are trying to go to Las Vegas to get married. But along the way, they take a side road. You know how that always goes in these movies. And they are accosted by what is referred to throughout the movie as simply Hell Cop.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hell Cop doesn't say anything. He just has a pair of sunglasses. He's bald, and his head is like tattooed with like just symbols and stuff, except it's not really ink. It's just like indents in his head. So he's like the ultimate super intimidating dude.
Mm-hmm.
He rips the car door off, grabs Christy Swanson, and drives away with her into hell.
Mm.
Because apparently there's a gateway to hell on this particular road.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the way it always works. And so, Chad Lowe, I believe his name is Charlie, the Charlie in this movie, he has to consult the help of a local gas station attendant who somehow knows all about this gateway to hell, and keeps a super cool car in his garage that he was saving just for this, and gives him a shotgun with special shells and all sorts of fun stuff like that. But basically, the bottom line is that Charlie has to pass through the portal, go to hell to get his girlfriend back.
Mm-hmm.
This movie has one of the most creative portrayals of hell I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's not fire and brimstone. It looks, well, it just looks kind of like Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Except, you every once in a while you'll drive by something that's really off.
Mm-hmm.
Like there'll be like a biker bar full of like people in chainmail, or like a yogurt. There's like I guess it's an ice cream bar full of dead cops with like, bandages wrapped around their face, like really creepy dead cops all, stacked in the booth seats. There's a part where Charlie passes this section of hell where people are literally trying to plead their case in front of a hell worker,
Mm-hmm.
who then sends them up to jump into a cement mixer, and they obviously get torn apart and their limbs come out the other side. And they're just, when Charlie drives through, they're just falling limbs everywhere, like bloody legs and stuff. It's really creative.
Sounds that way.
There's some really great cameos too, like Gilbert Gottfried as Hitler. This movie is just insane. But when it comes to Satan, Charlie has to take his girlfriend back from, he gets to the top of the tower and whatever, and he has to convince the devil to get her back.
Mm-hmm.
And when he escapes down in the bowels of hell, he realizes that the car mechanic, the guy who had helped him along the way, was actually Satan.
Mm-hmm.
And he's wearing like this red velvet bathrobe. And it's one of my favorite. I mean, Patrick Bergen plays. They call him Beezy. Patrick Bergen plays him, and it's one of the more unique portrayals of Satan, I think, because he's not really a bad dude. He's just sort of doing his job.
What's next on your list?
Well, this is one that I actually mentioned earlier in the episode because it does such an authentic job of replicating what films were trying to do in the 70s with Satanism, but at the same time does it almost better than any of those films. You know what I mean? It's T. West's House of the Devil.
Yeah. Which
is it's a super slow burn. Like I don't even think slow burn is like the right word for this. Like if I had one complaint, it would be that it's almost too much of a slow burn. Like there's almost too much material before you get to the crazy stuff. But
I disagree. I think it actually works in its favor quite well. Because like you do feel like this character that just has no real clue what the fuck is going on within this house. You know what I mean? I mean, it all kind of, it's all very effective in the fact that she's just trying to, make herself as comfortable as possible, and she's dancing around the house and whatnot. But, I think the slow burn actually works for it quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly I still enjoyed the movie a great deal. Which is about a college student who's trying to move into a new apartment. With a cameo like Dee Wallace at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Playing the landlord. But essentially, this character Samantha has to come up with a bunch of money to put down for her apartment.
Well, I think Dee Wallace is kind of really kind to her, and she says, "You know what? You reminded me of my daughter, so I'm gonna, take away the. If you only have."
Yeah, well, Dee Wallace's character is kind of weirdly nice. She's like, don't worry about a deposit. Just give me the first month's rent. And you're just kind of like,
yeah,
okay, that's a little weird. But as the story goes, the character Samantha, she has to raise a bunch of money in a short period of time, and so she enters a bunch of babysitting ads, including this one, which is in the middle of bumfuck, God knows where.
Yeah.
And her friend actually, played by Greta Gerwig, is the one who has to drive her out there. And
Oscar-nominated Greta Gerwig, who I love in this movie because all she does is fucking eat the entire time.
It's true. All they do is go to the pizza place and just stuff their faces.
Yep, and she's in there, she's in their house and she's eating out of their candy jar. This girl is constantly eating. She may be pregnant. I don't know.
And then she has a super sudden, shocking death scene. But basically, Samantha gets to this giant house and finds out that the parents have lied in their ad. They don't actually have.
They don't have a child.
A kid.
So they say, we don't have a child. We're sorry we lied to you. I'll give you, extra money, for being deceitful. We do have an ailing, mother in one of the rooms that she never sees. That's kind of like you know, that's the through line. Like, yeah, we don't have a kid, but you know, we do have, you know,
But
like
we do need you
senior
to stay in this
citizen
house.
living in the home that needs, you know, needs care. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She slowly discovers basically that she's been set up by these people to be the bearer of the devil's child.
Yeah.
Again, birth of the Antichrist.
Again. And it turns out that the ailing mother is actually a witch, and she looks like a classic witch. It's really cool makeup, you know, like if I do say so.
Yeah. And then the ritual itself as well is really cool and well filmed, I think. Spoiling the ending, but I think the ending is one of the best parts, actually.
Yeah.
The fact that, you know, that she has been impregnated with the Antichrist, and she thinks she's gotten away, and she basically when she learns that she's going to give birth to the Antichrist, she shoots herself in the head, tries to kill herself, but she survives. They put her up in a hospital room as a vegetable.
Yeah.
And the Antichrist is going to be born anyway.
Yeah.
I believe the closing is like the nurse says something like, "You're going to be all right, both of you."
Both of you. Yeah. This was a screenplay by Grady Hendrix, and you know, it was an homage to the Satanic Panic films because it is called Satanic Panic. This movie's a lot of fun. It just, you know what I mean? It just,
well, with a title like that, you know, it's got.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of, it is kind of like in the vein, you know, even though it is technically a better film, but, you know, sort of in the vein of like something like Ready or Not. You know what I mean? Somebody unsuspecting, you know, that ends up in this really like, you know, horrifying situation. Strong female, I guess. But it's just about it's a pizza girl. She rides a Vespa. She, you know, like keeps getting stiff for money. She ends up getting a call for delivering this pizza to this mansion. And then she ends up in this situation where she becomes, you know, a victim to the satanic cult run by Rebecca Romijn. She plays a character named Danica. And, you know, they basically just want to sacrifice her because she is a virgin. And then
those virgin sacrifices.
Oh yeah, big time. So yeah, so basically, you know, plays on all these really, you know, tropey things, you know, when it comes to, you know, Satanism and whatnot. But it's got all these different aspects to it that, you know, just work so well. Just, you know, kind of like Ready or Not, you know, like these characters that, you know, like are, you know, within the cult are really fucking fleshed out and goofy and interesting to watch. And she actually ends up breaking free from this cult. She ends up knocking on another mansion door, and this babysitter, you know, she's supposed to be a babysitter. She answers, and it turns out it's actually her house. And her sister has, you know, she attacks this girl Sam, this pizza girl Sam, with a fucking. It's basically it's a drill dildo. And she accidentally, you know, impales her sister with this dildo and electrocutes herself because they, you know, basically like, you know, the dildo drill goes through wiring and electrocutes both of them. And then it turns out that Danica's daughter is in another room and she's, you know, like she's gagged, you know, and tied up because her mother was actually pissed. She was supposed to be the vessel for, you know, for this Antichrist. And she ended up having sex.
But she had sex. Oh, damn. I knew that was going to be it.
Yeah, she ends up having sex to go against her mother's, you know, rules and stuff. And then basically it's just like, you know, this girl, Judy, Danica's daughter, has, you know, power. And, you know, there's this power struggle going on between Danica, the leader of this cult, and this other woman. And they're trying to, you know, stop Sam and her daughter with, you know, witchcraft, you know, and this and that. And it's just a lot of fun to watch. And then the ending is the best part because they end up capturing Judy, Danica's daughter, and Sam, the pizza girl, and they end up tying her up, and they're getting ready to do this ritual. Danica ends up slicing her daughter's throat, and Sam is actually going to be the vessel for the devil's child or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you know, one of the Danica ends up killing one of the cult members that was going against her, and she falls into this like this kind of circle of salt that they had basically like built to penetrate them or protect them from the uprising of this demon after she gives birth to it. And the salt kind of gets knocked away, so there is like kind of like a hole there, you know what I mean, where they can't protect themselves. So it turns out in the guise of a little girl, there's this other demon that comes up named Samizel, and she is supposedly more powerful than the devil, and she's really pissed off that they didn't basically use her. They didn't try to conjure her up. They they went against her wishes and like basically were worshiping the devil and whatnot. So as Sam is basically at this point, she's pregnant with the Antichrist. She ends up saying this mantra about bunnies and basically gives birth to 2 rabbits.
Aww.
As Samizel basically just decimates this cult in front of her, like just decapitates Danica, Rebecca Romaine's character, and everybody ends up just like dying. And then Sam ends up escaping, and I think she ends up calling one of the where she ends up she tells her she goes back to her pizza place, and she ends up telling them like I quit, and then I guess she goes on a trip like across the world or something, and she ends up having one of these rabbits and calls the rabbit Judy, which is the daughter of I guess like it was basically in honor of Danica's daughter. So her and her rabbit baby end up absconding from
living happily ever after with the rabbit baby of Satan.
It's just a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun to watch. The last movie that I'm going to talk about is at the time of this record is actually celebrating its 6th anniversary. I saw this movie 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. I instantly fell in love with it. It was one of the best modern horror films that I've seen in a very, very long time. And it's called Starry Eyes, which, stars Alexandra Esso, who, has just been giving star-turning performances left and right, especially in Dr. Sleep when she played a masterful Wendy Torrance. Spitting image of Shelley Duvall, from voice to everything. She's fantastic. I love this actress. Holly and I are liberal media. A lot of people in liberal media are seen as like these blood drinking child killing cultists or whatever. So it would make.
And I think also even beyond that, it's a Hollywood. It's a Hollywood standard.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And
when it comes to like getting in to the Hollywood circuit,
And this plays into it perfectly because it does involve this girl who is she's attempting to be a star, and she works at a fast food restaurant, or her career isn't exactly going where she wants it to go. She is friends with this one girl that's constantly trying to steal her thunder. She's trying to constantly steal her parts and whatever she gets. She has a more understanding roommate, and she has another friend who is also, he's an indie director himself. But she ends up going on this audition for a film called Silver Scream, which is actually being produced by this company called Astraeus. And these people are automatically ominous as soon as she walks in. Her audition does not go well. And you know what I mean? It's just an awful audition. It does nothing for them. She ends up going to the bathroom, and she starts screaming hysterically and pulling her hair out. And when she goes back to the producers, they're just like, "Can you do that again?" So she does. And then, they start talking to her about, accepting transformation. And, at this point, obviously, it's just basically, just something that's, not really explained, you know what I mean? It's not, but these people, like I said, they're really ominous. And she notices that they, all have this particular pentagram around their neck. She doesn't really understand why. So she goes to a second audition, and, they tell her to disrobe, and then, she decides to do so. By the third audition, she's basically kind of coaxed into having sex with the producers. So, we can also get into the whole, casting couch, Harvey Weinstein type situation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Will you sell your soul, for fame kind of thing? you know. So that definitely enters into it as well. She, you know, doesn't agree to this, and she ends up running away. But again, you know, we're touching on the actual aspect of transformation, which is something that they mention. And this girl literally goes through, you know, she goes through a gamut of fucking changes. Like there's moments where, like, you know, her fingernails are literally like deteriorating and falling off. She pukes a bunch of like bloody maggots into a bathtub. Her hair starts falling out. You know, crazy shit. And it's just like constantly happening, and she doesn't understand why. What is this, you know, what is this transformation that, you know, that she's going through? Is she dying? She doesn't know. And then she finds out that this, you know, this guy, this director friend, he invites her to, you know, to do a part in his movie, and she absolutely agrees to do so. And this girl that's just been, you know, double crossing her left and right, this Erin, you know, girl named Erin, you know, like they're at a rap party, you know, outside this apartment, and she sees Erin kissing him, and that's when she really starts to like flip. And you know, so basically, you know, she basically kills Erin, slashes her face with a knife, and then really just gets into it and just starts like stabbing her fucking repeatedly. And then, you know, like, you know, just becomes really bloodthirsty and murderous, and goes back to the producers, and they end up like basically, you know, like through like a ritual, you know, like where you have like kind of like this you know, like this really glitzy looking, really beautifully shot, you know, like pentagram, like, you know, made of lights, almost like, you know, like some sort of Christmas lights or something. It's really cool how they do it. And she, you know, like has a rebirth, and she goes back to her apartment. She ends up, you know, killing her roommate. And then she goes into her room, and they actually gave her a box, and one of them, you know, like is like this beautiful, like glitzy wig and this beautiful dress, and then she ends up putting this necklace on with the pentagram, the same one that the Astraeus producers have, and then her eyes actually glow green as she's looking at herself in the mirror.
They basically anoint her as the next star, whatever cost that has.
So that is our episode, Satanic Films. Like we said before in the beginning, I have, you know, I have a huge respect for Satanists, and I think, you know, I think they're following the letter of the law for the most part when it comes to how you should be with humanity and animals and respect, you know, to other people. And
isn't that ironic? I love it.
Super ironic. It definitely is. You guys are awesome. You guys are doing the right thing.
So
that's our episode. Satanic Films. That's it for us. We'll see you after Thanksgiving, and we'll scare you later. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers.